USD230 to order. Rachel, please collect the roll.
Mrs. Milius? Here. Mr. Ewing?
Here.
Mrs. Sealing? Mr. Hoffman?
Here.
Mr. Updike?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell? Here. Mr. Anderson? We have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. First item is approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second. It's moved and seconded for the approval of the agenda. Any comments or questions or discussion? Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Milius? Yes. Approved.
Very good. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to start off this our meeting again this evening with the reading of the mission and the vision. Let's start with the vision is to maintain small town values and empower each student to achieve world-class success. And our mission is to be a school district that engages students to learn, create, adapt, and succeed in an ever-changing world. It's important that we keep these thoughts and vision and mission in mind as we work through our meeting's agenda. So thank you again for everyone being here this evening, board members and those out in the audience. Public participation.
No cards were presented.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Moving on to the consent agenda, which consists of approval of the consent agenda items, approval of the minutes of the May 8th, 2023 regularly stated meeting, personnel, IDEA assurances, Greenbush contract, purchase of dishwasher machine for the Spring Hill Middle School, Spring Hill High School band attending the Alamo Bowl on December 29th, 2023 in San Antonio, Texas, and Edgenuity annual renewal. Any discussions or comments around the consent agenda?
So let's say, I see Rod Sprague has put in his resignation and moving on. It's been 13 great years with him. I'm gonna miss him.
I am too. I agree, Brent.
Great guy.
Yeah,
Wish him the best of luck.
absolutely. He's created value while he's been here.
Yes.
Any other comments or discussion around the consent agenda?
Mr. President, I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second. It's moved and seconded for approval of the consent agenda. Any final questions or discussion? Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Milius? Yes. Mr. Ewing?
Yes.
Approved.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to discussion items. First discussion item of the evening is the construction and maintenance project updates.
Yes.
Dr. Luttrell.
Summer is definitely a busy time for doing projects all across the district. We've shared many of those with you in prior months, especially those that were, had a cost attached to those. However, this evening, we're going to give you an update on those. But first, Mr. Tim Meek, our Director of Construction, is going to kind of update you. And some of you were able to join us for the tour that we just finished earlier. That was why some of us were rushing in here prior to the meeting over at Forest Spring. And I also believe he has a little bit of some surprises as well. So Mr. Meek, take it away. I fixed mine this morning on my computer.
I tried. I couldn't figure it out.
Have to fix each slide.
Yep. Magic.
There we go.
Not the first time today I've had to come to Bill for a problem.
Is your mic on, Tim?
It is now. All right, construction maintenance project updates. We'll go on through here. Really no changes as of yet to the project updates. A little later, Jay Dunn's gonna be sharing some numbers with you. One thing to remember on those is that those are construction numbers only. Those are not furniture, fixtures and equipment, utilities, salaries for the district and some things like that that are added on. So while their numbers look really good and they are really good numbers, I'm very proud of what they've done and we've been able to do together. We've just gone through COVID and furniture, fixtures and equipment has gone up tremendously. So all of the savings that it looks like we might have aren't necessarily there. They did a great job of managing construction. I wish I could say I've done as good a job at keeping the cost down on the furniture, fixtures and equipment, but haven't been able to do that. So here in the next report I probably do will be beginning to change out some of those things to final on them. So Forest Spring Middle School, we're going to get it open here in the fall. No problems. We're in the phase of really getting all the furniture and fixtures. The people that were toured it saw that most of the furniture is there, but there's a lot of, and fixtures are there, but there's a lot of bits and pieces of things to come in yet. A lot of it's ordered. A lot of it is there already too. So get that. Middle school, the next month, one of the things that's probably been dragging is the installation of sound equipment in the the multi-purpose room and the commons. That's I hate to say it's a COVID item, but they've never caught up. And if you know anybody that's ordered sound equipment, over a year waiting on some of it or more. So we believe we'll have all the microphones, and there's one Crestron board, the little controller board, kind of like what this is over here, that controls sound and stuff like that. We're waiting on that one item. Or actually there's two of them in there. We're waiting on both of those, and they keep saying it'll be here at the end of the month, but I'm not sure which month it is. So yeah, I think it'll be early July we get it. So furniture was great. School and office products out of Wichita that we worked with did a phenomenal job at getting the furniture in. It's all very good. Really have no challenges other than the one I just shared about sound equipment really for that. Safety report is still the same safety report you saw last time, because we really haven't had a lot of contractors on site doing stuff, but still one recordable for the whole project. And just some quick pictures. That's what it looked like in August 3rd of 21, and that's what it looks like in April of 23. So media center, you can see furniture. You can see furniture in pretty much all of these areas. Weight room, equipment's going in, being installed right now. And that's really it for the middle school project. So anxious to get it done and all the stuff in. So any questions on that part of it? Facility maintenance projects, I'll have Kylie join me here on it. I will. Actually, before I go there, I have one thing I want to share. I'm going to probably embarrass somebody in the audience here today. He didn't know I'm sharing this, but one of the things that J.E. Dunn does at the end of a project is send out a customer satisfaction survey, basically to their contractors that we used on how they felt they were done. And I got carbon copied on one of them, and I wanted to kind of read a little bit of it. It's not near all of it, but just what one of the contractors. This is from Jack Zimmerman Construction. We've done a lot of work with them over the years. And he says, I appreciate the fact that I could always communicate with someone from the Dunn team in a timely manner. I have had instances with other CM jobs where my calls were never returned. My change requests were always treated fairly for Zimmerman Construction and for Spring Hill. If Mike Leisinger thought I was being too aggressive in my change request, we were always able to work out a compromise that was acceptable. Mike did a good job of representing the district in these discussions. A big factor that helped Zimmerman Construction and the entire project was Mike Leisinger's insistence that all the small parts and pieces were submitted in a timely manner. Mike's persistence paid off in the fact that I had to pay attention to all the numerous small items that was within our scope. With so many small items in our scope, it would have been very easy to overlook some of the items. The above persistence from Mike paid off in a quick closeout of the project for Zimmerman as well. So it's been a real pleasure to work with Mike over the years, and he does a phenomenal job for us, and I wanted to give him the recognition. It's good when the contractors can say something good about you at the end of the job as well. So facility maintenance projects, Kylie, come on up. Do you want to take it?
I'll just
To start with.
quickly go through these slides here. Haven't started anything at Prairie Creek yet. They are planning in the next 2 weeks to start the epoxy, and then next week we'll be starting the concrete work. Spring Hill Elementary School, they are gonna finish up the lighting in those rooms there this week. Friday, they should be done. Carpet replacement, they'll be removing the old carpet on Wednesday this week. Water fountain replacement, we've already finished that. And the kitchen production area, do you want to talk on that at all?
I will say that it's moving along well. Great shout out to our crews, our own in-house people. It's amazing what can get accomplished in, actually, I was gonna say a week, but actually 4 days, the 4 days after Memorial Day until that Friday evening. They were amazing at how much they got done to get set up for success for all the summer projects we did. They did a phenomenal job. So.
Spring Hill High School carpet replacement hasn't started yet. That'll probably begin in the next couple weeks, but it's just a small area, so it won't take but about a day. Lighting upgrades, we continue to do that through the summer and even through the school year, upgrading lighting to LEDs. Parking lot drives, we did finish that up. That is complete. Water fountain replacements, that's complete too. Netting system on the backstop, we did do one field. We did it before the baseball season started. We do have to make some modifications to that. It's sticking out a little bit too far out on the field. So when they hit a foul ball, if it hits that net, it is a dead ball. So we need to bring it back and up. So we're going to meet with DLR this week, Clay, Mark, and I, and discuss that a little bit further, how we can do the other fields differently. New shot put area on track, that is to begin in the first week of July. And Spring Hill Middle School maintenance projects, there is a lot going on there. All of our in-house crews have basically removed all the furniture and everything out of the rooms that are getting new flooring replacement. So all that's been finished. The gentleman to start doing, the crew to start doing the polished concrete and the epoxy will be in this week to start doing some demo. And then they plan to start next week on that. And carpet replacement, again, like Spring Hill Elementary School, they plan to start doing some carpet removal of the old carpet starting Wednesday as well, so. Restroom partition replacement, we won't do that till the epoxy is complete, so that'll be later in July. And then any words on?
Again, kitchen remodel, they started, pretty well have everything emptied out of the server area, and most of the things our crew took out of the kitchen area. So when we do the epoxy floors, we can, don't have anything in the way for it. So, again, that's just part of what they did in I like to say the first 4 days, but really most of that stuff was done in the first day after Memorial Day. It was very quick. They've started cutting in to put the center roll-up door into that area. You can see there's 2 doors. They pulled the 2 doors out. It'll be a single door on each side with a roll-up door in the middle. So there's some masonry work that's coming next. They started on that today with cutting of the wall sections out. So, but not much more than that.
And then lighting upgrades, we finished the office lighting upgrades. We've done 300 hall. We're right in the middle of doing 500 hall. And so that's going well. The landscaping project that we've been doing, we do have all the border and mulch in. We are gonna wait till fall before we plant any plants, because it's just spring and fall is the best time to plant, and we're not gonna do it in the middle of summer. So you won't see any plants there until later in the fall. Painting, they've finished 200 and 500 hallways. They're still doing a little bit of painting inside the building. If you get a chance, go by the stadium. It looks totally different. Looks amazing. So get a chance, drive by. It looks really good. I'm really pleased with the way it looks. So Wolf Creek, that will happen later this month or beginning of July, the carpet replacement in third grade pod. The snack room, the tile will be removed this week, and we'll probably get started on that next week, retiling that. Timber Sage Elementary School, that'll be at the end of June, we'll be doing that project. And finally, the crack seal is complete district-wide. Pothole repairs we do in-house, and striping we do in-house, and we'll do that probably later this month. So any questions?
The approach at the high school that's all torn up, is that?
Yes, I didn't have that on here, and that approach was annihilated. It has holes all in it, and it's just something I did after I had done my discussion, the decision we made after. So yeah, it really needs to be repaired. So that's.
It was obviously torn up, so.
Yes, it is. So it should be.
No turning back right now.
No, there isn't. But it was in need of significant repairs there. So
It's impressive what you got done already. Yeah. When you guys do the lights, do you do just the bulbs or the whole fixtures?
at middle school, we're doing the fixtures, the whole fixture, because it's such an outdated light, and I don't know if you even remember what they are, but it's got this checkered look, and it just looks so outdated that we just did the whole fixture.
Okay.
Now at Spring Hill High School, we are doing the ballast with the LED bulbs, because they're a newer fixture. They're not that old, and it looks just as well as putting a new fixture in.
Good.
So,
Thanks.
all right, thank you.
All right. And the next part of it here is going to be a presentation from J.E. Dunn, so. I'll let Phil bring that up, or you gotta do it from up here.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, Tim, for the kind words. That's awesome. Thank you for allowing us to speak for a few minutes. We'll be brief, but we wanted to first say thank you for entrusting Jay Dunn to be your CM over the past two bonds. We really appreciate that, and we've accomplished a lot of great things. We were hoping to showcase a little bit of that today and celebrate the successes that this entire team's on the board, the school district, as well as Jay Dunn and our entire team. So we want to say thank you, and I'm going to turn over to our superstar PM to go through some of the details as far as where we landed on budget, finances, schedule, and overall success of the past two bonds. So, Mike.
Everybody. So yeah, like Jeremy said, we'll go through kind of projects, the teams, safety stats and financial performance. And then Kelly will touch on a piece. So bond overview, we had 7 projects in all. Basically every building was touched except for Spring Hill Middle and Wolf Creek Elementary. Started back in 2017 and just finished now, and overall budget of 126 million. Again, that's just construction dollars, not all the soft costs and furniture. So leadership team, just want to take a minute and just thank Tim and Phil's partnership through this process. Really 2 things stick out in my mind. One is that just the culture they've breeded on these projects is a collaborative and positive culture. When we have a problem, how do we help? How do we fix it? It's not a hostile deal. They held us to the fire when they needed to, but just appreciate, that, and our trade partners did too, just help the overall health of the projects. Then the other piece was just their vision for the district and understanding what the district wants. A lot of, I think, other clients, we deal with a lot of confusion and taking 5 steps back constantly results in a lot of wasted money, a lot of just back and forth, makes everybody angry, honestly. And it was just a very clear vision, and just really helped us be successful. So we appreciate that, amongst other things, but really and just your guidance and mentorship over the last several years, we appreciate. But yeah, you see kind of the team there, and this is some more people that were involved. Andy Taylor was involved with 4 of the 7 jobs as superintendent. Basically, him and I were tied at the hip for 6 years, but so many other people did great work here for the district. And so here's just a high level of the 7 projects plus this building, which wasn't part of the bond dollars. See there, and I'll dive in a little bit shortly on each one. High school athletic complex. That was maybe the most stressful one. We barely finished. I think Tim and I were part of the cleanup crew hours before the first football game, but we were able to get it done, get that first football game in, and didn't save a lot of money, but overall, I think the community ended up with a really good result and project. Timber Sage. So obviously you guys like to keep the same prototype, which I think is a great way to go forward with the jobs. Timber Sage was an example of that. We were able to save a lot of money there. And that one went well. Spring Hill High School edition. Again, you got to work at an existing facility. So we had our ups and downs with that, but went really well, and we're able to save 300 grand there. Woodland Spring was the first of a prototype of a new middle school. Went really well from a financial standpoint. It's our first time working with Olathe and a little bit with you guys. And so we had some deals to work through with them, but you're able to get the skyfold door and a bunch of other alternates accepted, and it went really well. Educational Support Center was a difficult building, but we eventually got there. And I know there's been a lot of tours of this building and a lot of people in the area oohing and awing over it. So I think DLR did a really nice job, and we were able to execute on that one. Dayton Creek, I just show these 2 pictures because these are 12 months apart. This was a tough site, a lot of existing conditions and tough geotech that we had to work through. But this was December one year. They worked hard through the winter, and 12 months later we had a school, and obviously they're working inside still, but they really kicked butt and saved a lot of money there. And then finally, Forest Spring, obviously we took the lessons learned from Woodland Spring, and we're able to knock this one out of the park. You probably see there were a couple of incidents through there. And so safety, in all, we had about 750,000 man hours on these jobs. So we did have 2 incidents, not proud of that, obviously, but how the industry looks at it is total recordable incident rate. And so you take those man hours divided by 2,000 times it by your incidents. We were at a 0.52 on these jobs. Our company this year is at like a 0.7, which is really good for us, especially compared to 5 years ago, and the industry's 3. So overall, we had a very strong safety performance. And then financially, 126 million, like we talked about before. Final cost, we were able to save about 3.4 million. The other kind of cool thing about that is we were able to do a lot of side projects, I'll call them. And so you see some of these minor things that are included with this cost that we were able to take care of as part of this bond work. And so, and I think as a group, you guys got really good bang for your buck. I will turn it over to Kelly.
Good evening. This microphone is very loud. Everyone, you can hear all the way in the back. All right, so I'm Kelly Bruker. So I came on board last year to help the K-12 team support sort of student and community engagement. Whoa. Oh, touch. No, you're fine. So I know that Mike and his team did a lot of engagement with the students during the process of these bonds, sort of impromptu. We good? Yeah, okay. However, I wanted to take a minute and kind of introduce you all to our new K-12 education initiative, which is called Building the Future. So Building the Future is now basically a program that we launched last year, and it really focuses on bringing awareness about construction careers to students and giving them a lot more hands-on opportunities. We used to do this sort of by request, but now we actually have a nice program that I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of. So I'm going to kind of just walk through this. So really the goal of Building the Future is to engage students to get them immersive learning opportunities with local businesses, with our interactive digital platform. So I will share this at the end where your teachers can go on and request an engagement from JE Dunn. We do a lot of hands-on learning experiences, and we also partner with like Prep KC or Junior Achievement, a lot of other nonprofits that help with career opportunities. All right, so what is the objective of Building the Future and our program? Really, the first thing is awareness. So depending on the age group of students, we work with elementary school, middle school, and high school students. But the first step is building awareness. So having students understand what a construction career is, what are all the opportunities that are available at a very young age. Then bringing engagement to them. So if that is at our headquarters or if that is at the Builders Association, just getting them more hands-on engagements with all the different types of construction careers. Building connection. So this is kind of the mentorship between professionals in the construction industry and students. And then also a lot with workforce readiness. So there's kind of two different types of careers that we talk to when it comes to construction. The first is more of the construction management, more of the Mike and Jeremy path, engineering, college degree. The other is really the skilled trades. So we do talk to a lot of students about the opportunity for apprenticeship and what that looks like and guide them towards what they could do if they were looking for a construction career outside of going to a four-year college after graduation. And then building community. These are just some pictures. So it is very fun. We have lots of different engagements. There's actually 6. Again, everywhere from elementary school, as simple as we are reading books to children about construction careers and what that looks like, kind of breaking the stigma of construction, to career fairs with middle school students, going into classrooms and talking to them about what career opportunities they have. And then high school, this is more, okay, it's time, it's ready, you're going to graduate. How do I get an apprenticeship? I'm interested in welding, I'm interested in carpentry, and really walking them through the steps to go down that career path. So this is a QR code. If you happen to have your phone and you want to scan it, but we have a full website. Again, it kind of walks teachers through how they could request a resource, how they could request an engagement. And then we have a team at JE Dunn that will review all those requests. Each district gets 3 a semester. So we would love to have you all engage more in our program, and I'd be happy to share this out so you can make sure it gets in front of your teachers. All right. And without further ado, we have a, what? You want me to hold this? Yeah. We have a special surprise.
Well, so as a token of our appreciation for hiring JE Dunn and trusting us build your project for the past 2 bonds, we're going to memorialize the project. So the large one showcases, we'll get a Dr. Luttrell, and he can display that in the board office or wherever he wants to. And it shows all the projects we did. Some of our team members who are still with us signed it. And then for each board member, and then Tim and Phil, we have a smaller plaque that you can put in your office, in your house. You can do whatever you want with it. But as a token of appreciation for you and trusting our company, and we really do appreciate the partnership. For Mike, when we hired him, he literally came to Spring Hill to work and has been here ever since. So his car doesn't know where to drive now since he's not down here. But we really look forward to and hopefully coming back soon and working with a great partner with the school district of Spring Hill and JE Dunn. So again, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank them. Well, thank you. Yeah. Very good. I think it has been a good partnership. If you look at just look at the numbers. If you only look at the numbers, it's $3 million saved, which allows us to get some projects done that we may not have otherwise been able to do if we didn't have the skilled management working in our favor. So we certainly thank and appreciate you for all of the good, solid, hard work that's done over the last 6 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well done.
Absolutely. I talk to other board members I know in different districts and they have projects and they start talking about their problems like
Yeah.
that.
Well,
We're good.
Yeah. The thing that amazes me is your total recordable incident rate is a 0.7 on these projects. That's just phenomenal. I mean, that shows an absolute commitment and dedication, this is 6 years of work, continued dedication and commitment to making sure that the folks that come to work go home the same way they got there in the morning. It's really, really important. And it is a culture thing. And I think that culture comes through the collaboration between Jay Dunn and our team here, Tim and Phil and Kylie. So thank you. And that, to me, that's a real hallmark of a successful project. If you look at your total recordable incident rates, two out of 670,000 hours of work. That's a great accomplishment. It really is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Forgot a couple of things I forgot to mention earlier. You guys probably saw the cup there in front of you as well. That's something also we wanted to give you to help kind of memorialize the projects and the bond issues we've had, the successes we've had as well. And the last one was, I told Dr. Luttrell I would mention this and I forgot. When I did my original report, one of the things that we have talked to the city of Spring Hill about, and if you guys have got any calls about it, we've asked the city of Spring Hill because we've had some patrons in the area ask about crosswalks to the new middle school. So that's not something that we build. We don't build stuff on their roadways and off of our property for that. So we've turned it over to the city of Spring Hill and we've asked the people to call them and talk to them about that. So just wanted to let you know that and inform you. So if you get something, say, hey, you might talk to the city of Spring Hill about crosswalks. So,
Good plan.
I'm excited about the Building the Future program. It's got to happen. You know,
Absolutely.
I assume you've been talking to Clay back there, maybe. Great.
Ready to move on? Moving on to discussion item 7.02, the facility usage guidelines. Dr. Luttrell?
Yes, we have going to talk here about our facility usage policy. Kylie and Mr. Freegon both are here this evening. And while we have had, we have, like most districts, a facility usage guideline policy in place. We typically, over try to enforce that, try to make sure it's aligned for both to have a good balance between community use as well as when our facilities are needed for district use, which is, quite extensive. And I just thought it would be a good opportunity just for Clay, now that he's had a full school year under his belt and he's, works closely with Kylie. And then I've also kind of, become familiar with the policy and just thought we would just kind of share with you all as a whole, just so everyone kind of had an update, because it's not broad in its entirety every year as to how our process works, as well as every year this time we kind of try to tweak it if there's a need to be for various things that might come up that we feel would make sure it stays aligned, and that way it would allow you, if you had any questions or if you had any thoughts that you want to just toss out to see for us to take back and consider some input before we roll everything up and put our facility use policy, because typically we'll gear up for the new school year that starts in August sometime in early July. And so we just thought this would be a good opportunity. So Clay and Kyle, I'm gonna turn that over to you. And again, just share with us just the policy. They've got the documents that you provided and just kind of lead us through, how the process works and what we've been kind of doing, and maybe fine tune and just also how it is a challenge, as much as we'd like to make all of our facilities available all the time, that there is quite a demand on the request, plus us being able to make sure that we have proper personnel present at all, those times to make sure that they have access and that the facilities are properly taken care of. And because with our own staff shortages, sometimes that can even be a challenge. So Kylie and Clay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I hear their attachment, you got the facility use guidelines, the facility use and facility use fees. If you've had a chance to look over it, I think it's pretty self-explanatory in itself, but how the process works is someone would get online, fill out a facility use fee, they'll fit in one of the 5 categories, A, B, C, D, or E. They pick that category and then they go through there's a couple other questions that ask, like, what's your name, what date you want to use the facility, and go through, they submit that. It goes to Brooke Sandberg, and Brooke will see if it fits in the calendar with any other facility use. Because our own facility use, what the school does comes first. So we always look at that. So if there's any interference with what we're doing with the school, it'll obviously be denied, or we'll try to move it. So she reaches out to that person and we try to get that approved as much as possible. So I don't really have any other discussion. I mean, it's pretty here. If you read it, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask.
Was there any changes from last year?
There is gonna be some changes, and I'll let Clay
And
talk about that.
yeah, I think the main change was allowing for the high school to be opened up for, and like you said, there is some circumstances where it definitely is going to be like kind of in phases. I don't know what exact terminologies, but phases as far as when we're using different facilities, that certain areas might not be available during that time. But in the past, I believe our policy as far as this high school facilities have been off limits. So we are trying to open that up some. But as Dr. Luttrell mentioned, there's definitely our kids, we want to put them first as far as what different activities we have going on. We have a lot going on, which is great. It's good to see those facilities used, but we also want to make sure that we're providing for all our stakeholders as well. And so trying to provide those opportunities if they can exist during those times. So any questions on that?
I did read through this pretty, I mean, not like fine tooth comb or anything today, but it's kind of wordy. So I don't know whether there's some way that you guys could, because it does appear like things have been added and, to it along the way. So, but the one thing that I noticed, like I'm sure the not high school as much, so maybe more Kylie, but I'm sure the rec commission is one of your big things that you do a lot of work and, do a lot of use to those elementary schools. And I just know from working with them on other things that it would be really helpful for them to have some kind of I don't think they have any kind of agreement that's more than just fill out the form. Maybe I'm wrong, but where like if a church rents something every week, they have a contract so that they know they're going to get this, so they can plan better, I guess. So if there's any, wiggle room to do something like that, I think that would be really helpful for them. And they're really the only organization like that. Maybe you might get a little Johnson County Parks and Rec with some of our facilities, but they're kind of the only organization that's a little different the way I see it, with a lot of need for gym space and they're, training the kids that will be our future students. So I did see that. And I know they were referred to in here and which is great. And it was, I think though it was referred to as a Spring Hill Rec Association. It's just a little editorial thing, but I think they've been a commission for 30 years or something. So they used to be the Rec Association. So just some terminology to update, but yeah, I mean, it seems like there's some things that maybe could just
Yes,
kind
and I
of tweak a
found
little bit.
a lot of little errors in there as I was looking through it, some
But it's just
minor things like
understandable when you
that.
have a document that you kind of keep adding to and tweaking. And so anyway.
And so for Spring Hill Rec Commission, we have a verbal agreement for them to use the early childhood center, the gym, the locker rooms, the tennis courts and the baseball fields there. So any other facility use that they do throughout the district, they have to go through that same process. So that's the only place that we do have just a verbal agreement. And I will look into maybe coming up with some sort of contract. We've been hesitant to do that because we've been growing so much that we didn't know if there's a time, actually, you know, we did spring something on them when they were using it, that the high school wrestling team is now using it during the season. So that was one thing. They weren't very happy about that, but again, our students need to come first. And so it's something we had to do. So we've kind of been reluctant again to have a contract because we don't want to be stuck into something that we can't change on a whim's notice. So yes.
So I thank you for looking into this and working on it. I had redirected it for some reason, kind of a influx of people this last few months, redirected them back. And I think that I feel like I say this phrase at work, people don't know what they don't know, but there's so much that goes into this. It isn't just as simple as leaving the gate open. And yes, there's stakeholders and taxpayers, and I understand, but I just want you to know that that's always my response, is to redirect, but also there's so much more that goes into it, that our high school use first, the facilities, the maintenance, there's just a lot more than it. It's not as simple as just use the football field whenever you want to. So I appreciate your work into it and looking into it and following up with our people that were asking lots of questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I did have one other question, just because I hear things and people ask me things. The old gym at the elementary school, Spring Hill Elementary School, is that, because I didn't see any distinguishing, is that ever going to be used again for?
It is currently full of construction materials that were left over from our previous construction jobs and some furniture and things like that. I would love to have that all cleared out and use it at some point for Spring Hill Rec or whoever. At this point, it's not going to happen. There's just so much to be moved out of there. So I am looking at moving some furniture out and doing some things to open that up, but it could be like a couple of years down the road, to be honest with you.
I would just another question. I saw Hilltop's not on there. Is there anything that it's usable for still? Or is
Hilltop?
Yeah, is it?
Well, we no longer own it, so Grata owns
We just
it.
pay the insurance on it. That's
Yes, we just have the lease agreement, so
Okay,
it's
I
really
forgot.
out of the question
okay.
for use now, so.
One area that might help us in our planning, we've been talking a lot about the rental of the turf fields at the high school. Currently, by policy, they're not allowed. It's probably the area that I get the most questions, and I know they both get questions as well from whether that's local soccer teams or, I mean, typically it's not related to the rec, it's your individual sports groups. And I know there's been a past conversation at the board level, and I would just be curious as to where the board is currently around that topic, because it may help Kylie and Clay as far as knowing if there's revisions that need to be made to the policy, or if that's still an area that the board feels is best left to just the high school student use.
I guess my opinion is it should be left for high school use. Those are extremely expensive fields. We've seen damage at other facilities. The last thing we want to do. We want our students to wear it out through student activities and not through outside folks. That's my thoughts on it anyway. And they take a lot of maintenance as well.
Yeah, I think the turf fields is a little bit different than just paying somebody so much per hour to be supervising. There's so many things that can happen. I mean, I think at one point they were talking about even like chewing gum or something on it is a major problem. So I don't know how you would necessarily police that. And I think the other one in the past that we talked about is the Performing Arts Center, the auditorium at the high school, because again, I mean, there at least it's a little more manageable to have somebody supervising it, I could see, but it's a lot of expensive equipment and very costly repairs and that sort of thing. So I do think we need to protect the investment that the community's made in our facilities for sure.
So I have a couple questions, because I'm a little bit maybe in the other boat where I think our community and our taxpayers should be able to use facilities or rent them with dollars to be able to use them. So they have put that investment in, and so I feel like they should be able to utilize those areas. But what are the fees that people use for our facilities? Those are utilized for upkeep and repairs and anything that should happen while people are using that. So if people are paying the same fees, wouldn't that go to any repairs or upkeep that was happening on the turf fields?
It'd probably be significantly more, right?
Yes, it would be significantly more than what we could ever charge.
Sure. So are there anything outside of football games and soccer games that are happening on the fields now? Because if we go that route, I'm curious to know if there's anything else happening on those fields that could be classified not as football games, football practice, soccer games, soccer practice. If we're going to keep some parties out, taxpayers that actually paid for these facilities, why are we keeping some out and not all the others? That's just my thought.
I hear you. I think I know kind of what you're referring to. I think one-off events are a different type of thing than ongoing soccer practice with continuous use running up and down the field. And I'm not aware of us, or I've not heard that we have excluded other groups like for a one-off event or things like that. I think that that's been pretty open. Correct me though.
I cannot tell you of any groups, one-offs that we've allowed. It's been strictly the high school I played. I don't know. You may know better than I do.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the majority of events are what we're talking about there. The only thing I can think of is maybe after prom, Powder Puff.
Oh, I didn't think of
did that, and they use the fields, and they've always used the fields. That's the only one that I can even think of. The other people we run off, and it's kind of a concept battle of when you're going by the high school that you have people that jump fences and get around it and get out there. And so maybe it might look as if it's open, but it's, we do try to definitely restrict it down to our high school kids. So that's the only one that I would be aware of.
But we have a lot of different facilities that we do allow access to. I guess that's where I'm coming from. We have we have a great soccer field. We have a practice field. We have a field over there by Spring Hill Elementary. We have a practice fields at Spring Hill Middle. We have a lot of facilities that people can use.
Right.
I think there's a lot of options available.
There is.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I can't think of anything that hasn't been student led or something about our students. I don't know of any other events that we've let outside community.
The only thing I remember is on a baseball field. And that was a few years ago at a summer team. But I think it was kind of run through our coaches.
Oh, I
right?
think I know. Yeah, like the summer league and again, it was our students, but they were playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
randomly,
the only thing
Yeah, I
can
remember that
think
too.
of. And it was baseball fields,
Right.
which are a little tougher than
Right.
$1 million+ turf fields.
You're right. I mean, as I'm thinking of the turf fields too, just trying to even police what kind of shoes, the cleats they're wearing. And I mean, you
Yeah.
can create a lot of destruction
Gum,
really
sunflower
fast.
seeds and
Yeah, sunflower seeds.
Yep.
So as people come to you for this, just one of the main things, and tell me if this is right, they just need to make sure a lot of that is related to our students. So the use would be for our students.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good
This is
clarification.
just another question because I don't really know the answer. Are the tennis courts open for public use?
They are open and they are not locked. So the tennis courts are
But you
the,
don't advertise.
Yeah.
Except now.
He's like, keep it on the download.
Everybody knows.
But those are left open. And that was part of the discussion that we had too about
Yeah.
this, that came up was, that was the one part that had, but that was also something I think that had kind of carried over from the tennis court when they were in town, that they were always left unopened. And so when we came out here, that we had the tennis courts first and not the other fields. And so those were left open. And so we have left those open, and I don't
Yeah,
know how much damage, if we've had any damage because of that.
not too much,
Yeah.
a little bit, but. And also the previous stadium, remember, was open. And so we kind of, the tennis courts, the previous stadium was open. When we built the new stadium, then we put the fencing up around it, and we just ended up leaving the tennis courts open, so.
So the middle school track's still open, right? In town?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's just, we just put $1 million into that, right?
We did, yeah.
Or allow access to that, but it was,
So,
it lasted a long time.
so the middle school, Spring Hill Middle is open, but Woodland Spring, I don't believe. I think that's locked.
I think they locked it for a purpose. It seemed like there was some problems.
Some issues. And the new middle school.
There
we
was,
locked
but it
that.
was open at one time to allow patrons to go in there and use it. And I think that's kind of our policy, is that we allow the middle schools to be open for spring, for
Mhm.
people to walk and use the track. It's just the high school is what we're focused on. Hey, we really need to preserve the quality of those fields, so.
Okay.
I think along with that and preserving the quality fields, which we have great facilities, was outlined by Jay Dunn as well. And then also just the fact that of all the events that we do have going on there, it is really hard and difficult to be able to find more time, and, you know, just, and you think about over the summer and you're like, oh, over the summer, but you go into work, you know, tomorrow morning at 7:00, we're going to have kids filing through there, and with camps and different things, we're probably sending 500 kids through tomorrow. And that's just, again, that's every day, Monday through Thursday in the high school. So it does get relatively busy there. So we appreciate your insight, your thoughts on that. That helps as far as us moving forward, as far as trying to figure out what the best way to balance some of those things. Is there anything else you guys have?
I would just, I guess the ask is what Sharon brought up, is look at that overall use or the guidelines, because it's a 8 or 10, 12 page document. It's 9 pages. Is there any way we could reduce it?
Yes.
So it's just what people need to know. to
Yep, we'll look into that.
Streamline that process a little bit.
Absolutely.
Just another suggestion, put on your radar. Consider with camps and things that the appearance to the public is that it's by individuals, because we're paying individuals.
Mhm.
And so I do hear issues about that often. They're curious why they're paying someone directly instead of the school or the district, or, so that's definitely kind of a source out there of confusion, contention. So just something to look at.
I think that's where a lot of the questions I've had have stemmed from, is that our facilities are being utilized for youth camps run by coaches or whatever, but similar practices or camps for our students maybe aren't allowed to use the facilities. I think that's where the confusion is happening. So maybe a little clarification there is why some groups are allowed, but some aren't,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Okay.
You know, I don't remember what they told us the life of those turf fields are, but they're pushing 6 years and they look like brand new. So
Yep,
I
think that's.
I know they told us how long they'd last, but I don't recall. So,
I think it's 10 years, but I think we'll outlast that, to
yeah,
be
I'd
honest
say.
with you.
Yeah, we got
I hope
20 plus
addition
out
to
of the other.
Do you know the estimated cost to replace the turf? I was thinking it was astronomical, so.
Frightening.
It probably is. It's well over $1 million, I'd imagine. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
Goes up every year. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Bringing clarity to that. Moving into cost of living, resolution 23-9, Dr. Luttrell.
Yes, as we are planning for our fiscal year 24 budget, as you know, we're always trying to use every various fund at our disposal to make sure that we can maximize the mill levy that we already have assessed, have been approved for and set for patrons. And of course, some of the different funds, the amount that you can levy, is reduced on an annual basis, depending on what the purpose of that particular fund might be, as well as what option is available that the state has allowed. So anyway, as you know, we did the big push to get current year funding, which again came up just a tad short. So we're trying to look at, with the expenses we have coming up this budget year with opening Forest Spring, make sure we give adequate salary enhancements to our classified and certificated staff, that we make sure that we're able to have a budget that will do those things without, breaking our bank and breaking our mills. So as Doug and I have been, and Josh have been, conversing over the past, few months, one of the options that Doug came up with that realized was available that we have not used in the past is one that deals with the cost of living designation fund, which I'm going to let Doug come and share that information with you. Again, all we requires at this time is a resolution that will allow us to do so. And the way that he will explain it to you is that upon approval of this resolution, basically our plan right now is to basically whatever would be levied in this mill wise in the cost of living option fund would only offset areas that are being reduced in another levy mill fund that we're looking at. So ideally it would be a wash. Now we can always in future years may want to increase that, but Doug's going to explain that and kind of walk you through that here. Mr. Swin, take it away.
Yeah, the main strategy behind this is extraordinary growth, which we've taken advantage of through 5 different applications, is a levy that doesn't last forever. It's a fairly easy process. You put an application together and I brought them before the board approves them. I submit them off to the Board of Tax Appeals, and quite honestly, they pretty much rubber stamp them. Whatever we ask for, I've never had them come back and say, well, prove it. So we get that authority and it's up to us whether we levy part of it or all of it. And the way it's set up is it only lasts for 8 years. If you decide you're going to get $3 million worth of authority, the first 2 years you can levy 100% of that authority. You could levy $3 million. When you get to year 3, it tapers off to 90%, then 75, then 60, 45, 30, 15, and then it's gone. The challenge we have is we've got a few that are active that are now tapering off. And yes, we can do a new application for spring or for Forest Spring, but it's going to start tapering off as well. This particular levy allows stability. It is based on whether or not we qualify, but because of the value of our homes in our district, we definitely qualify now. We didn't always qualify, but we're one of the highest in the state right now. So I've estimated there's probably $2 million worth of authority potential there. The budget numbers should be coming out soon when the software is released, and I can give you a firm number here in a month or probably in about a month. But the nice thing about this is once we have it in place, it's indefinite, kind of like capital outlay. We have 8 mills we can levy. It's a permanent levy. Doesn't mean we have to levy our full authority. The board controls that when you adopt your budget. So this just gives a more stable long-term solution versus extraordinary growth, which tapers off and eventually goes away. I will tell you that I do still plan on completing an extraordinary growth application for Forest Spring, just to have another ace in our back pocket. It doesn't hurt anything, doesn't cost anything, just in case something weird happens. And we need that authority. It is important to note that we currently, our enrollment numbers, you have to qualify to get extraordinary growth. We currently qualify based on our enrollment numbers, but when the new ones come out this fall, we will not qualify. So we have a window in which we can ask for this authority for extraordinary growth, and then it will be gone. So I would prefer to have two aces in my back pocket to play rather than one. And once I start assembling the budget, you'll see how much we truly have to levy from both locations to make our budget work. So tonight, it's a discussion item. Feel free to ask any questions you might have. Next meeting will be an action item. It then goes into the newspaper one time. It'll be published in the Miami County Republic. We then have to wait 40 days for a potential protest, which requires 5% of the registered voters. If it does get successfully protested, then it would be up to the board whether or not to put it on the ballot and see if it passes that way. And if it would make it that far and we already have extraordinary growth in place, the board could decide, we don't really want to go for that right now. We have the application approved for extraordinary growth. Let's just set on it for a year. So anyhow, just giving the board plenty of options going forward. This is really that 4 to 5 year plan. We're in pretty good shape as far as what we need to levy for the near term. But as some of these older extraordinary growth applications taper off, it's going to limit what we can levy. Questions?
Oh, so I just want to make sure I understand this right. So you have different funds that you can levy in that all add up to, so doing this doesn't mean we're going to raise the mill levy. It
No,
means
not
that you
necessarily.
just might levy some in this fund, but you won't in another fund.
Exactly.
The COLA has no state aid associated with it or anything, right?
No,
Okay.
There's really no advantage of extraordinary growth versus this levy because there is no state aid on either one of them. So. And we will always try to levy in the areas that do have state aid to get the most bang for our buck. So this is not ideally the first place to go if we need operating cash, but it does give us operating cash that if we wanted to do something incredible with salaries or whatever, this would be an opportunity to go levy that authority and make that happen.
I remember you talking about this last year or the year before. So this is a levy and that obviously this district has never done.
Right.
How long has it been around?
I want to say at least between 8 and 10 years.
Okay.
And I remember when we first qualified, it was like 1% and it was a really small number. I think I saw somewhere where we could be as high as 6 or 7% this year, which we could have potentially 2 million in authority, which is a huge number. Obviously, there's not a need to levy that amount. But if you were to translate 2 million into mills, I'm anticipating 1 mill will levy about 450,000 this year. So to do 2 million, what is that? About 5 mills? But you will see that every district in Johnson County has this in place already, and that's where where we've been levying extraordinary growth and they've been levying in COL.
Okay. That's my next question. That was my next question.
We're the only district in Johnson County that's not tapping this particular levy.
Okay.
So it really kind of lines us up more with what our neighbors are doing and being less dependent on extraordinary growth.
So besides extraordinary growth, what other funds could you see not levying and replacing this with? If the mill levy's flat, what are there other, or would it just be that extraordinary growth fund?
It's probably going to just be a balancing act with extraordinary growth. Is kind of what I'm thinking. Just depends on how all the numbers come together. And if we need to generate some more operating cash to protect cash balances or whatever the case might be. So that picture, I'm hoping, will be much clearer in a month. We are actually attending a budget meeting at Greenbush here next Monday, so I'm excited about that.
Does extraordinary growth, that is all state funded? That's not local, correct?
No, it's totally local.
Oh, it is totally.
It's
okay.
totally local, yeah. And so is this. Totally local dollars.
Gotcha.
No state aid at all.
How much longer do we have on, you're gonna apply for extraordinary growth?
Yeah.
For Forest Spring? What
I
do we
will.
have left on? What was the last one? Woodland Spring?
Yeah, I was anticipating that these questions might have come up. I got a cheat sheet I can pass out. That.
This is State and Creek, right?
So if there wouldn't have been a veto, we probably wouldn't have had to do this. Is that correct?
All right, I have to have a cheat sheet because I cannot keep these numbers in my head. You will see that for 23-24, we're in the eighth and final year for our number 2 application from 2014 and our number 3 application from 2015. We're in year 5 of our number 4 application from 2019. And then we are in year 2 of our number 5 application from 2022. So you'll see this will be our 6th application. I've estimated asking for $3 million when we do the extraordinary growth application. But that's subject to change. That's just a placeholder. But if you look at the bottom, that mountain, you will see how our authority quickly tapers off. So where this year we levied 4.4 million, I'm really kind of hoping we can kind of wean ourselves off of this so we're not quite as dependent. But as long as the state doesn't help us out, we're going to have to do whatever we can to survive. But you can see our authority is going to quickly start dropping off. And so by having cost of living in place, it backfills that for us so that if we are still needing that for operating purposes, we have somewhere to go. And it shouldn't result in a mill levy increase unless we want it to, if there's a need there. Does that kind of help see all the layers and how they phase off? And like I said, it's a lot to kind of keep track of, but. Any other questions? Good. Those are good ones.
So I thought it was 8 years. I'm not catching on here.
Yeah, it is 8 years. If you look at the top row, I don't have it extended. If we did that yellow line, if we do an application for Forest Spring for 3 million, you'll see I kind of chopped it off at 28, 29.
I got it.
But it would still go out 3 more years
I thought it
beyond
was
that.
based on the opening of the date of the school, the year of the school opens. I didn't realize you could renew it. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Once you have approval, it's for that eight-year cycle. Now I will tell you, I'm going to muddy the waters even more. If I do submit this application for Forest Spring, I'm going to ask that the first year be 24-25. If we get this resolution in place, so that I can kick that can down the road and have that authority another year out, because we really wouldn't need it next year. But I can't wait and apply till next year, because then we don't qualify and then I don't have it. But timing is everything.
Right.
All I have to do is wait and apply later this year when it's too late to get it in this coming year's budget. And I've talked with the Board of Tax Appeals. They said I can make the effective start date with the 24-25 budget year. So this is really off by a year. We probably, again, if this resolution passes, I will set it up so that the first year of extraordinary growth would be 24-25. That just maximizes our ability going forward. I'm trying to think out
Yeah, sure.
enough down the road, and so you got plenty of options.
So you would probably, you'd definitely do both, the COLA and the extraordinary growth.
Yeah, unless, 3-4 years from now, you can really wean yourselves off of this funding source, which I don't know that we can. But if we're still dependent on it, we're going to need both. We are. So, how much we use of both of them is going to be up to that year. A lot can change. So, right now it's just estimates, my projections kind of going forward, but I do think at some point in time, you'll want to tap both of those sources, but not necessarily 100% of the authority you would have.
Got it.
Any other questions about COLA and extraordinary growth? Thank you, Doug.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And we do have insurance. I think the agenda
Yeah,
might
they've
have got shuffled.
They've got a printed copy that has it later and.
Okay,
This got printed after I made some adjustments on the schedule, so.
All right, we're good.
It hadn't been forgotten.
Just didn't want to forget it. All right.
So you want to go back up to property casualty and workman's compensation rates?
Well, you're welcome to.
Let's do that.
Okay, we will go ahead and do the property and casualty this time. We'll back up. So we do have, and speaking with the earlier presentation from Jay Dunn, with all of our new facilities and across campus, we have to make sure that they're protected, for any emergencies, things that could happen, protection wise. So we have our annual kind of individual hit and from Elliott group that kind of has oversight to make sure that we have enough coverage to cover matters pertaining to our facility, as well as also handles our workman's comp claims. So here tonight, I'm gonna turn it over and let him do the presentation.
You want to open it? Yeah. Well, I want to thank you all for having me tonight. My name is Jay Hastert. I'm with the Elliott Group, based out of, we got an office here in Spring Hill, and we've got 5 other offices. Just to tell you a little bit about us, we've been in business 45 years. We got offices in Topeka, Lawrence, Overland Park, Lewisburg, Spring Hill, and Paola. So we appreciated the opportunity to work with you guys for the last several years, and we look forward to hopefully continuing that for the next several years. Tonight, I want to start, I think we've got this opened up here, but if you're okay, I'd like to, can we just go ahead and skip to the, I want to skip to page 27. That's the pricing page, and I'll just kind of work from there if that's all right with you all, unless you want to go through all the details. I'm happy to do that, and I'll go through everything with you. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the industry. 22 and 23 have been extremely challenging in the insurance industry. And I'm sure if you have an auto, you have a business, you have a home, you're feeling the effects of it now. And if you're not, you're going to. It's been extremely challenging with the fact that inflation has kicked in. We've seen a lot of increase in the construction costs, labor costs, and we've also seen an increase in the severity of catastrophic claims. So you had the hurricane down in Florida at Fort Myers. You've had a rash of tornadoes that came through Alabama and Mississippi here just earlier this year that are unusual. Of course, California's always got, issues going on out there. And so what is happening with the industry is there is a big push on rate increases. There's a big push on to increase valuations on property. And in the Midwest specifically, there's a big increase to try to take some of the risk off of their plate by increasing deductibles, by going to wind hail percentage deductibles, which they're going to 1%, and then do you get to Texas and all those areas, it's 5%. There's when you go to a wind hail percentage deductible, that goes to a per building deductible. You guys have a current deductible for wind and hail claims of $75,000. That would apply if 10 buildings get damaged, it's $175,000 claim. But if you go to wind hail percentage, it's going to be a deductible for every single building. We may still end up there sometime in the future. It just depends on how the weather goes and how the the climate in the insurance industry is. But there is a lot of people, if you own habitational apartment complexes and things like that, the companies are either getting off of those or they're increasing them to wind hail percentages. So this is not unique. If you look at the top page up there at the top of the page on the property, we're looking at about a 27% increase just in the property, and that's where it's all at. And what that is about 17% of that, or 16% of that is a rate increase. And we've got about just under an 11% increase in the valuation. And the valuations, I don't think we're overinsured. We talk to Tim and Kylie and Doug on a regular basis to make sure, but we know that it's costing at least $300 probably to build a school now per square foot. Homes are $200 a square foot. So we're trying to keep that there. When we have a blanket coverage and an agreed value policy with you guys, and it's a replacement cost policy. In order to stay and keep that, we have to insure those buildings at what it costs to reconstruct them. And we have to be somewhere in the ballpark. But what that gives us is the ability that if we have a catastrophic claim at the high school and we have $50 million limit on that high school and it ends up costing $70 million to replace that, we can use the blanket, whatever it takes to replace it, that and the contents. So it's pretty important. I know it's painful and I wish I had better news, but it's just it's a very challenging time in the industry right now. The rest of the lines, we're getting some, some small increases and things like that, or even a decrease in the auto. But the overall look at the premiums, we're looking at about an 18% increase in the commercial package. That's excluding work comp. And almost, as you can see, almost all of that it's all coming out of the property. So you're looking at about a $59,000 increase in the premium, which is a lot. You guys, congratulations on Four Springs. I mean, you're adding property. You're up to about $327 million in property now. That's pretty significant. So when we start making percentage increases like this, the dollars are going to be bigger. So we did do some property deductible options for Doug. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, and we did do that. But right now, we would not recommend them. The 1% wind and hail deductible, as I said, that takes you away from a common occurrence deductible to every single building would have a deductible that was damaged. And with a $50 million high school, that would be a significant deductible. So I cannot recommend that because there's just not enough savings there. $16,000, but I wouldn't recommend it. We're welcome to, we'll take you to it if you want to go there, but I don't think it's there. We looked at a $75,000 all peril, which means we would take your fire, your theft, any other kind of damage from $10,000 up to the 75, which is where the wind and hail deductible's at. But again, there's not much savings there to go to that. We looked at a $25,000 all peril with a $75,000 wind hail, $3,200 savings. I would say in normal years, you might get some more credits from the companies, but they're not looking to offer credits at this point in time. They're struggling to make ends meet, and they claim that they're not profitable, and 23 started out pretty rough for most of them. So we recommend that you stay where you're at. We'll keep a $10,000 all perils with a $75,000 wind hail. Questions on the property or anything that I can help you with?
What's the impact of opening Forest Spring? Because that's coming on our rolls. Right?
It's not as much as you think. It's actually your property rate, and I didn't calculate it, Doug, and I apologize. Your property rate's about 12 cents per $100. So if we took 12, and Forest Springs got a whole lot of things with it. So you got not only the building and the contents, but we got quite a few. We got the fields and everything else there, but probably estimate it's probably $20,000 maybe. I may be wrong. I may be off there. I should have calculated that. I apologize.
We can bring that number back next.
Yes, I can bring that. I can get that for you.
So it's $78,000 increase basically, right? And then,
With everything on it.
so 20 of that is, if 20 of that is for a spring, it's a
Yeah.
$50,000
Yeah.
increase.
I'll get that for you. The companies, when they quote blankets, they don't give us individual premiums for the buildings. It's just a big premium. So I
just
kind of have to
curious. I know
manually
we're-
calculate it for you.
That's an expensive building. It's just a large value building.
It is.
And I mean, that's just adding that property is gonna have an impact on this. So
Yes.
it's curious that.
One of the other things we have to do when we're looking at these valuations, so when you build, because you're building buildings on a regular basis, we really ought to, we have to, the companies are gonna try to bring them up higher than they probably need to be. We try to bring them up to what your newest building is. So if it costs $285 a square foot and you got, 100,000 square feet, then we're gonna try to put the other middle schools at approximately the same area, or try to use the same square foot cost. We don't offer to put them at $300 or $400, but we'll take whatever we try to keep them there, and that keeps the companies happy. And so we've done that with the elementaries. They tried to increase the elementaries more, but we use Dayton Creek. And then we kind of backed into some of the other elementaries that were the exact same square footages and stuff. And that's how we did that. Anything else? I'll go on to work comp. That's the next issue. Work comp, you guys have done phenomenal. Excuse me.
Are there any other questions on property?
That's a good call on that. I didn't think to put that into the percentage either. The new building.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I might have a question on the auto. What's driving the discount? Because looking at the list, we have more vehicles than we've ever had.
So I think what happens is it's a timing thing. Is when you guys transition to enterprise, the timing of taking a bunch of the vehicles off and then getting the others added on, it created a discount. You're really not getting a discount. It's just it was a timing issue as we transitioned those off. So the premium was here because we had the older vehicles on, then we brought the enterprise on. And then by the time we moved the others off, it just it makes it look like there's a savings there.
Okay.
But it's pretty even keel, but what a great deal for you guys to do what you did.
I just thought you had a fantastic multi-car discount.
It is a very good discount. I think we averaged, well, I don't know how many vehicles you got, but we probably only averaged $400 or $500 a vehicle for the year. Full coverage. So, workers' compensation.
Okay.
So you guys have been blessed with workers' compensation. You've had one of the lowest mods that I've probably ever seen. You were at 0.54, which means that you're getting about a 46% discount right off the top of whatever the premium or whatever the rate is that's calculated based on the payroll. And it's due to you guys' safety, conscious attitude. Obviously J.E. Dunn pointed that out, that they have the same thing and you guys follow right in behind them. And that's paid off for you. You've been getting dividends back from the work comp carrier. But the last couple of years, we've had a little uptick in some of the claims and really it hasn't been that bad. You average about 20 claims / incidents per year. But we've had a couple that have developed out into some fairly significant dollars. We got a couple that are open. And the way those calculations are done by the NCCI, which is the organization that manages all that for the companies, is that sometimes if you get a little rash of claims and you get some that are paying out, you'll see an uptick in or a loss of your discount pretty quick. It lasts about 3 years, but it'll start to come back down as some of those claims years fall off. So what you're seeing is you're going to go from a 0.54 to a 0.72. Now doesn't sound like much, but in the percentage, it's about 42%. Now, so your premium's looking to go up from 58 to 83,000 this year. Not much we can do about that. We got max discounts on there. We've got still the best rates. You're still getting a nice discount of, 28% before any, that it gets to the bottom line there. I think most of the claims we looked at, significantly are their slips and falls and is what they are. So we'll work with Doug and Kylie and whoever, and, you know, if we need to do some things or get some loss control in here, help out. Risk Management Services does a nice job. That's all they do is write workers' compensation, and they love schools. So they do a nice job, and they'll bring somebody down here to give you some tips and look at your facilities and, you know, give you some ideas on where you might be able to avoid some future claims or reduce them. But you guys have done a great job. It's just one of those things. Doug and I have talked several times, and we decided that we can remember the days that your premium probably would have been about we were probably at about $200,000 for premium. And luckily we haven't been back there for a while. So everyone's more safety conscious. Everything's just is working out better, but unfortunately we're just at that time. We did get a quote. We got a quote from EMC to ask, you know, them to give us a quote, but RAS is still the best deal for you. They're at 83 and EMC came in at 98.7. So we'd recommend you stay right where you're at.
So that mod rate, experience modification rate is going from 0.54 to 0.72, and schools are 1. Average normal schools are 1. So we're still better than schools typically are.
Absolutely.
But it's ticked, and I know it's weird because it's like it doesn't show up for a year and then it shows up for 3 years, it trails, and so it's a 4-year cycle. And
Right. So if we had a claim 3 years ago, that was $100,000, and we didn't have any for the next 3 years, that $100,000 claim will fall off and you'll be right back to the 0.54. So.
it just shows significant. I mean, you look at this is a 42% increase, and that's going from amazing to really good.
Yes, exactly.
And it's having a, better than other districts. It's a big impact. It shows how important slips, trips and falls. That's it. I don't know. Okay. And how does that work to have somebody come in and look at?
Well, what we do is we look at your history of your claims for the prior 4 years, and then we'd look and say, okay, so we got slips and falls, and let's say 50% of them were in the food service area.
Mm-hmm.
So that we would come in and we'd offer some loss control in the food service area. Look to make sure there's non-slip mats down, you know, make sure that there's no wet floors and things like that, and just try to help out and see if we can find an area where we might be able to avoid that $100,000 claim.
Okay.
But really, we can do any area. We can do all areas.
Okay.
Questions?
Question. I mean, it's painful to see that kind of an increase.
It is.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Any questions? Let's move to recess until 8:32. We're at recess. Moving on to our next discussion item, which is professional learning community. Late start Wednesday information, Dr. Luttrell.
Yes, as you know, we kind of really all this past school year kind of looked into trying to see if it would be a good thing if we could make work align our late start collaborative Wednesdays to where everyone was on the same schedule, but K through 12, just for the purposes of vertical discussions, horizontal discussions. And so, you all were, that was brought to you, you all were graciously gave approval to that to start this August. But in the meantime, then we have had to go back and work with some of our other community partners and determine how we were going to make that process work in terms of processes and procedures, in terms of parents that do need to still, especially at the K through 8 grade levels, need to still go to work, and they need a safe place for their child to go to. And so we've been working with that. And so Dr. Robinson has kind of taken the lead on that and done a great job. And he's going to share some of what we worked out, and as well as talk about some of the partners that are going to help us with that.
Well, I think this is a good example too of kind of a collaborative process. There's been a lot of our staff that have worked on this. Dr. Smith, Christopher, it's been a team approach to trying to make this work. Our elementary principals have been vital in making sure that we weren't missing something that we would run into. But before we start sending communication out to parents, we wanted to just give you an update and for you to hear the information first. So just a reminder of where we've come. Dr. Luttrell hit on a lot of this. The only thing I would add that we mentioned at our last presentation is that Dr. Smith and our teaching and learning department brought in a representative from Solution Tree, because while we continue to talk about the logistical pieces of how to organize it, they're continuing to look at how to make it more effective. And so specifically, they were working with our guiding coalitions, which is the leadership teams in each building that will help and drive the work within the building. So they did some work in the fall or in the spring, the last week of school, right after school got out. And they will come back again and do some additional work with that in our professional development days in August. So just know that while we're continuing to talk to you about changes, they're continuing to focus on how do we make this better and how do we make sure that it's impacting teaching and student achievement. So I wanted to give you a rundown of some of the things that we've discussed. And some of this will lead into your next item, which is a change in the YMCA contract. I would tell you Darcy Swan is here from the YMCA tonight too, if there's any questions for the Y. They've been a great partner in trying to figure out the best way to make this work, take a little bit more off of our staff, and do what's best, hopefully, for students and families. So the last time we presented, one of the pieces of feedback we got from all of you was we wanted to make sure that in all of these changes, we still had an option for our parents to be able to drop off at regular drop-off time. The YMCA has agreed to do that. And again, that'll be something on those PLC Wednesdays that is offered to our parents for free. I'll show you what we anticipate our numbers looking like in just a minute, but they will still ask for parents to register at least once throughout the year. Their staff will take care of checking students in that morning and making sure they know who's there, which was one of the concerns that our elementary principals had. Because a little bit different from middle school and high school, you didn't want elementary kids just going in the building and not knowing where they're at, or if we do have a situation that we know we can account for everybody that's there. They are doing this in a few other districts in the morning, and so they've been able to give us some idea of how they make that work. And so I'm confident that they have a really good plan. JC has done a great job of working with our principals on breakfast, because if you think about how PLCs currently work, our supervision by the YMCA is done in the cafeteria area and often the gym. The cafeteria, with balancing that with breakfast, they've worked a little bit on what schedules will look like and what supervision will look like. It will probably be a lot of our paraprofessionals and classified staff that are in the building helping more with the breakfast side and that supervision rather than what they're used to. Because one of the pieces of feedback we heard really clearly was if we could take some of the programming responsibilities back from our paraprofessionals, it probably makes their job more enjoyable and probably helps us in retaining our staff. So we know there will be times that the YMCA runs short for a week but one of the pieces we're asking them specifically at the elementary is to take on more of the staffing and programming responsibilities in hopes that if we are plugging in a paraprofessional to assist, that they're there to assist with supervision and not being expected to provide the programming during that time. So it's a little bit of shift in responsibility and hopefully will help in the retention of our paraprofessional and classified staff. To make that work, one of the changes we made was to pull the YMCA back from the middle school level to the elementary level. So you'll see the middle school programming look more similar to what the high school has done in the past, where there'll be a space that's supervised by staff for students who need to come at that regular time. But it'll be more of a quiet work area or study hall area rather than there being ongoing programming during that time. And when you see the numbers at the middle school and high school level, I think some of that will make sense. The other piece of having the YMCA help at the elementary level is it really will help us to create 2 drop-off times. So what will be communicated to parents will be a YMCA drop-off time that in most of our buildings happens at a separate location in the back. What the Y has done at other locations is they've had somebody go out to the curb and meet parents and check them in that way. And then we'll have our normal drop-off time that's closer to the start of school as when breakfast would start and when buses would arrive. Trying to think what I'm missing. I'll probably think of things as we go, but if you have questions, please stop me. I wanted to share just a little bit of data. We sent a short survey the last week of school, which is always a great time to survey parents. We actually had a pretty good response. We had about 726 families respond, which really for that time of year, as crazy busy as it is, was a pretty good response rate. And really what I just wanted to highlight for you, one of our questions was about how many of our families anticipated that they would still need to drop off at the regular time. And so you'll see a progression here from high school to middle school to elementary. And I would tell you it's similar to what other districts with a morning PLC are seeing. So our results showed about 7% of our high school students would need dropped off at that regular time. When you see the progression to middle school being at about 12%, and the elementary being at about 28%. So we knew there would be a need for more supervision and more programming at the elementary level. Really if you translate those numbers, especially at the middle school level, you're looking at about 30 or 40 kids coming at that early time. And we know there'll be times where that'll fluctuate and be bigger. But as far as changes to programming and supervision, it should support the changes that we're making at this time. I just wanted to highlight towards the end here the changes that we're asking for, which will lead into your next item, which is the YMCA contract. But we are asking the Y to take on a little bit more responsibility with supervision and staffing, which takes it off of our staff or reduces the responsibility on our staff. They haven't even hesitated in that request, and have asked Darcy to correct me if I'm wrong. From the very beginning, they've been open to taking that on. And one of the things that you'll see is the last few years, the district has been paying about, I think it started at 14 or 15,000. This last year was about 17,000 to support the staffing during that time. It wasn't the intended consequence, but because of the changes that we're proposing, that 17,000 will no longer, you'll see it's been taken out of our contract. So just kind of an added bonus to the district. Our classified staff, there was some question before as to if they're not supervising every week, what will they do? Our special ed director and teaching and learning have both been looking at this. There's a number of modules that we could have them work through that are connected to structured literacy, which is something they're doing a lot if they're doing any kind of small reading group or supporting the students during the reading time. There's also some additional things in Master Teacher, which is a program that our special ed department uses heavily to make sure our paraprofessionals are getting their state required in-service hours. So there would be an opportunity for them to do some professional development. They'll also still have some supervision responsibilities related to drop off and breakfast in the morning. And that may be a rotation. It'll really depend on how early students are getting there and what the needs are in their building. So a lot of that'll be at the discretion of building principals. But I think overall it'll be an improved atmosphere for our classified staff at the elementary level. And then at the middle school, high school level, as I mentioned, we're looking at more, if you think of more of a study hall kind of space. We did hear from some of our families that this is an opportunity that their kids enjoyed, quiet socialization and things like that. And I think the structure that middle school and high school have discussed will still allow for a lot of that without putting a lot of burden on our buildings. So before I jump into the contract piece, because I know it's a separate item on your agenda, do you have questions that I can try to answer?
I just have some clarification. Can you go back to that first slide? Sorry, second slide.
That one?
Yes, that one. Thank
Yep.
you. Okay, so just to make sure I'm reading it accurately, looking at elementary first, they can be dropped off between 7:40 and 8. Do they have to be dropped off by 8 or wait till 8:40?
Yeah, so their request is that they're dropped off by 8, and part of that would be because they're utilizing staff outside to check in, so it
Sure.
would allow their staff to come back in and support supervision.
It
It also would help our buildings because part of this plan, we want to do what's best for our parents. The other piece of this is protecting that PLC time, that if we do have certified staff that are helping in any way with drop off in the mornings, that they're able to get to their PLC as quick as they can and be a part of that.
Right. Yeah, I just think it needs to be over communicated so that they know.
Absolutely.
By 8 o'clock or not until 8:40 for sure. And then second, so looking at middle school, drop off could still be.
Yeah, they will still have their doors open at the regular time.
What do we, I don't remember. I mean, we never got there early, so.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna ask that question. What's that?
7:30. They can still get there at 7:30.
Yeah.
How does this affect busing?
In talking to first student, they will run an hour later, so they'll run and actually drop off ahead of breakfast. So it will affect some students that way that are used to their bus picking up a little bit earlier. It'll pick up later on Wednesdays than it does the rest of the week.
So for elementary, they will pick up.
Yeah, they would drop off closer to 8:40 instead of 7:40. So it would create a situation if you're a parent of an elementary student that you would have to work out to get your student to school at the earlier time on Wednesdays rather than having transportation available.
Do you anticipate that being an issue?
We'll do everything we can to stay out in front of it from a communication standpoint. I think that's our best way of doing this. And then I think there's going to be a lot of things as we get started that we'll have to look as we get closer and see what the parent response is.
Okay. And then
there are other places that do this with it causing very little issue. And I'm not saying it's not an inconvenience. It is an inconvenience to parents. But I think once we make the change and get a few weeks into it, the other advantage we have is I think our first PLC is like mid-September. So we'll have an opportunity to start communicating now as enrollment really kicks off. But if parents are like I am with my girls, I probably won't see a whole lot of it until school really gets started, and I'll pay a lot more attention at that point. And so it'll give us an opportunity to get out communication in a couple of different forms about this change.
So just putting my parent hat on, if there's any way that the bus company could have the times out sooner, that would be very helpful. I mean, right now it was just a couple of days before the school year starts. And if you're trying to adjust, if you have to be at work at 8 and your child is now your kindergartner is not going to be picked up until 8. You can't just let your employer know that 3 days out. So
we can start working with them to get that out sooner.
yeah, because that you sign up for buses during enrollment. So that's mid-July-ish.
Early July. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then middle school, the biggest change there, well, busing will change.
Yeah.
To later too.
Yeah. And that was one of the pieces that we heard pretty frequently from both the focus groups and the early surveys was that there was a large portion of our middle school families whose students were coming early more because of busing than anything else, and that if they had a later busing option, they would choose to come at the later time. So I think our most recent survey data probably supports that as well.
I would think that's just communicating early on too. I can see parents being, I mean, you're 11 and 6th grade, so I can see parents being concerned about leaving for work too early, but I think once they get towards 8th grade.
Good.
And then also at middle school, so really, we were doing clubs and things, so really, it's just gonna be a quiet time now if they go to school, if they get dropped off by 7:30 by a parent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it does allow a time if the middle schools chose to do something during it. I just want to make sure we're communicating it as a quiet work time and not, and if they choose to do something from a programming standpoint, that it's more a bonus than an expectation at this point.
Okay, thank you for.
One
answering.
quick follow-up on the busing comment, just kind of keep in mind, there are a percentage of the parents who sign up in July.
Yeah.
But there aren't enough of them that
Mm.
sign up in July for them to be able to really, so they are really hammering it hard from about the first couple days of August to school starts, just to get the routes processed. So it is strictly a window of opportunity. We've worked with them pretty close over the years on that. And I do know that they struggle to get enough parents to be able to do the routes almost until a day or two before school. So that's part of the reason they're late. It's not an excuse. I agree that it should be, but it's the hand they're dealt.
I wonder if we can help with that, if we can help support that. Can we make the deadline earlier? If they don't sign up for the bus by a certain deadline.
You can lead a horse to water.
Yeah.
All you can do is drown him after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, as a working parent, I can see the stress that this might create if I needed to adjust my work schedule on very short notice. So.
I can at least follow up with representatives at First Student and see what we can do to support their efforts in getting routes out sooner.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So just a perspective, and maybe it could help here. To Ally's point, could we, if we got our information out to parents earlier, I think I'm the one signing up the day before for buses. It's me over here. But I feel like like you're trying to put all the pieces together and you're trying, can I get them there? Can I not? Do I pay the money? All of that. So maybe if we got our piece there, that would just help motivate parents.
Yeah. Well, and I can work with our communications department too, just to make sure we're making every effort to get information out and pushing enrollment as early as possible too.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions or thoughts?
Maybe in the enrollment piece, it is a confirmation of awareness. Like we check so many boxes in the enrollment, but, and I will fully admit, there's probably plenty of us that just check, but maybe you're aware that we have changed the school times on Wednesday, or I don't know, something, so that we can put accountability. I'm not.
Yeah, we'll continue to explore the best ways to communicate it. And I think trying to get it out in as many methods as possible, I think will be important. I hear that feedback loud and clear that we need to get it. We would like to see routes as soon as possible. But we'll work with them to see what the earliest is that we can do that. And I think they split out the contract piece into a separate.
You ready to
item.
move on to YMCA contract?
I am, as long as.
Okay. Yeah, let's move on.
So I included in your attachment, both the updated agreement, and Greg Goheen has reviewed it as well. A lot of the changes in it are just reflective of date changes and updates to make it current. The biggest changes that are there are reflective of the request for the YMCA to take on more responsibility. So you'll see two sections taken out. I believe that one of those was related to the cost associated to the district, and the other, if I remember right, was a grant that it also assisted in paying for staffing upfront. So as we removed our piece, I don't even know if the grant is still in effect or not, but that was probably the most significant change. We still have a separate lease agreement and all for them to use our facility that I don't know that there's any changes to it, but we'll explore that with the Y just to see if there's anything new. But we want to make sure that we get this out in front of the board so that it could be considered for approval at the second June meeting. Questions about the contract?
One of the things they removed was talking about the classroom materials.
Yeah.
Reusable resources. They're just not going to do that anymore.
Well, as we shift this, we're taking on less responsibility for the program and we're giving them a little bit more flexibility to determine what's needed in the way of programming. I actually think some of that was more necessary based on the 200 or 300 kids we had attending at the elementary level in the afternoon, where when you see the proposed numbers being a lot smaller, what you'll likely see is more in the way of smaller hands-on activities or games in the cafeteria, and potentially something organized in the gym. So there may be less of a need just based on the timing in the morning for those materials. But if that changes, we can come back and discuss it.
That makes sense. Thanks.
I would say again, a big thank you to the YMCA. They've been a really good partner as we problem solved through what this could look like, and even offered up examples and suggestions from a few other school districts that are holding their elementary PLCs in the morning. So their input has been really helpful throughout this process. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Moving on to student handbook, Dr. Luttrell.
Yes, we did student handbooks a couple meetings ago, and then every year you also approve the Insight school handbook. And so if you have any questions on that, they did a really good job of providing the Excel spreadsheet that kind of had the one-page summary of, the changes that were there. But if you have any questions, Cassie is here to answer those, but it's something that is done every year.
Yes, good evening. Before I jump into handbooks, I do want to take just a quick minute to let the board know that I have Dr. Philip Teese here with me tonight as well. We've had some leadership changes with the departure of our high school principal, going back into the brick and mortar world with y'all. And Dr. Teese is going to be serving as principal across all of our grade levels. So I'm excited. I think he's excited. No, it's going to be a really good year. We've got a lot of great things in the works, and so wanted to bring him along and do a quick introduction. So diving into the handbook, really very minimal changes again this school year. Just so you know, every year we're audited from the Stride compliance team, and they go through different pieces of things, just kind of a constant checks and balances system. And so you'll see some things on here required by law or a compliance item. That's just something that they flagged as they looked at our handbook and suggested we make some updates. So that's what we've done there. And then a lot of it is just clarification. Every year you go through some things that you learn, and upon reflection, you want to do a little bit of updating to the handbook to help everybody out to have a smooth year in the next school year. So that's really what you're going to see here. I don't have a lot of there's nothing major that I think would be hugely surprising to anyone. So as Dr. Luttrell said, it's all outlined there for you. If you have any questions or need any clarification, I'm happy to do so. But otherwise, I won't read the handbook to you change by change. I'll spare you that.
Any questions?
I just have a question. It's absolutely pretty well unrelated. You talk about the Stride laptop. What device are you guys using?
It's
a Mac or?
No, it is not a Mac. It is they've started using more Chromebooks. So it kind of depends on the year the students came as to what they have, but it's a laptop that is not a Mac. Right now they've looked at Chromebooks. They are piloting in some schools, like some tablets. But we are not one of those, at least not for next year, hoping to just, ease of throwing it in a bag or a purse and taking it with you and those kinds of things.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for.
Yeah.
letting me know.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming in, Stan. All right, moving on to board work calendar, draft work calendar for fiscal year 2024.
Yes, again, just for your perusal there, after our June 26th meeting will be into July. And I kind of just put together what y'all are very accustomed to, knowing a document that'll kind of outline what some of the planned topics will be, for whether it be discussion or action. And hopefully, like I said, the main thing to keep in mind there is that is a kind of a roadmap that helps guide us, but that is not an all-inclusive list. There could be topics that are added, and so it will be remaining fluid as it always has been, but that kind of gives us a guide. And we'll start off in July so that's whenever we do the reorganization in terms of setting a lot of different designations for various things. And so we'll try to adhere to that as much as possible. That's the work calendar.
Very good. Any questions or comments on the? All right, moving on to Board of Education members' reports.
I'm not sure I mentioned this last time, so since the Insight people are here, I did sit in on the career, I can't remember what they called it, but it was their kids doing real world learning experience. And they gave reports on where they worked, and it was all a online meeting, but they had people listening in and giving them comments, and it was really interesting. I think there were maybe 7 or 9 students, and most of them were healthcare related, but it was really interesting, the things they were doing, internship kind of related things. So appreciated
Very
doing that.
nice. Excellent. Any other report? We had, Rachel, we had a Google Doc that board members were inputting conference information into. Is that, we have that collated or?
I do. I have it
combined?
finished and ready to share with you guys.
Okay,
Perhaps at the next meeting.
that would be great. Thank you. Any other reports?
So, let me back up a second, just say thank you for adding the board work calendar back. I appreciate that. Reports, just because we don't have a place for lists, but I have a request to have as we go towards the budget meeting will be towards the beginning of the school year. Can we add a discussion item on our SROs and how many SROs we have in the district? That's one thing. And the second thing, where can we access what teacher services we're going to provide at the beginning of the school year? Sorry, I don't know where to add things.
Okay, anything else? We do need an executive session this evening.
Mr. President, I move that the board recess to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel to protect the privacy interests of an identifiable individual under coma. Those to be in session include Board of Education members, Superintendent of Schools, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, and administrators as requested. This executive session will begin at 9:05 and resume no later than
9:40.
9:40 in this place. Second.
It's moved to second to move to executive. Did you get the second, Rachel? Okay, good. Moved to second to move to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel under coma. Any comment or discussion? Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Steeling,
Yes.
approved.
Mr. President, I move the board recess to executive session to discuss employee negotiations under coma. Those to be in session include Board of Education members, Superintendent of Schools, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, and Administrators as requested. Executive session will begin at 9:22. And will convene no later than 10 PM at this place.
It's moved and seconded to move to executive session concerning matters relating to employer-employee negotiations under coma. Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius, Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
approved.
We're back in session.
Hey, Mr. President, I move that the board approve the recommendation for the principal at Woodland Spring Middle School as recommended by staff.
Second the motion?
It's moved and seconded to approve the recommendation for the principal at Woodland Springs Middle School as recommended. Any final conversation or discussion? Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
approved.
Very good. Thank